I actually want you to think about millennials a bit differently. Does anyone know how old the oldest millennial is now? Almost 40. We are now talking about almost 40-year-olds. And when you see the years that we put up here, think next year. You're going to see 23 is now the Gen Z. Think 24, 23, 24. Because aren't we all planning for that right now? We're all in 2019 planning, right? They are now 40. You remember all the talk about millennials when they were 18? So this is why we're here today.
What I'd like to do in the next 15 minutes or so is give you a real quick overview of generations. A little bit more of a focus on the younger generations, but I'm going to cover all of the generations I think are important, and you might see why as we go through this. We're in the life stage. Where are these generations at? If you're thinking about it, not only age. That young Gen Z, under 23, most are still in school, most are living at home. It's the most culturally diverse generation ever. And many second generation, the children of immigrants who came 20, 30 years ago, starting to populate that and become of age. The millennials, a real generation in transition, ages 23 to 38. So at the bottom end, the young millennials, many of them still in school, many of them still home with parents, but starting to leave as they age. The older millennials have left home, gone out into full-time employment, started families of their own. Pretty culturally diverse generation as well, and a very highly educated generation. Gen X, the next one, the red line you can see, about 7 million or so. It's going to stay pretty constant in size. It's had its impact, immigration has had its impact, mortality not yet really affecting it. And then the two young generations, somewhat different things happening. The millennials, the purple bar you can see, actually going to increase in size over the next decade or two, simply because immigrants as they come into the country are still coming in that age group and supplement the size. And Gen Z, which is very small now, you can see how that's really going to increase in size, get up even to a bigger generation than the millennials or Gen Y. And again, that's the impact of immigration. There may be bigger differences within each generation. That is, all millennials aren't the same, all Gen Xers aren't the same, and within each of these generations, I think you have more differences than necessarily between generations.
What do you think one of the biggest differentiators is now between X, Y, and Z and marketing to them?
Yeah, and I think on the Shopify perspective, when we look at the differences between all generations, we look at how to reach those generations. So one of the biggest pushes we've had over the last few years is sell where your customers are. So understanding where those customers are and building tools to facilitate products to be purchased from those areas. So for example, buying from Instagram or buying from Twitter, which we launched early a couple of years ago. So things like that.
So when thinking about the different segments, how do they affect content partnerships?
Earlier this year, at the end of May, we held our first annual Twitter Fronts in Toronto, where we announced 16 content partnerships across news, sports, and entertainment. When we look at Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, we have all of those consumers on Twitter. So diversity is also super important. When we look at an older demo, like let's say more of a Gen X demo, appointment viewing is still important. They still know Thursdays at 8, this is us, CTV, and that's what they're used to. When it comes to live streaming on Twitter, we want to make sure that we're able to have those opportunities for that, to serve that. When we look at a younger demo, more like a Gen Z demo, we know that it's about instantaneous viewership. They don't care about tuning in at a certain time. They will tune in when they want to tune in. So when we're working with publishers to go live on Twitter, we need to make sure that we're going live when we know that those consumers are going to be online. When you're planning content for your platforms or working with clients, can you talk about how you use every platform differently?
You need to assign each platform a job, and you need to assign it one job. It can't do every job. And I think that, again, is another important piece to remember. It doesn't mean you cannot be efficient in the way that you're producing the content, right? We've done all kinds of crazy things like live beauty shoots that have turned into influencer events, that turn into editorial, that turn into how-to videos. Capturing all of the content, if it's planned well and done well, is the easy part. The strategy, though, on how you actually disseminate that content and how and why you disseminate that content to different platforms has to be considered. And again, my thing is, you got to kind of give each platform a job, and they have very different and distinct jobs, I think.
But if we do, sum up just the panel even today, as we talk about generational marketing and we're talking about targeting, we're now saying there's actually more difference or variance within each group than we're seeing across the groups. We're seeing that authenticity is fairly key, and now developing content for multi-platform, but really understanding what the strength each platform can bring to ROI, to the delivery of what we're trying to achieve. And I hope that you guys did get that today. I know that we speak specifically from the brands that they're with, but start to really think about how does this play a role in my world with marketing. So if you can join me in thanking the panel, thank you all.